Alright, welcome to Greg's Real Revival. Today we are going to be servicing a Abu Garcia Revo SX. I think in my last video on the Ambassador I said it was a Revo Max. That's incorrect, it's a Revo SX. So we're just going to get this thing taken apart and show you how it all works, and then we'll get it put back together. First thing, we're going to take off this little, this is a handle nut keeper. It basically just makes sure your handle nut doesn't back off. I'm going to lay things out here on my paper towels the way that they come off the reel. So then we have to take this nut off here. Lay the handle right there. This is a tension washer right here. And then we just spin this drag star off. All right. So get that. Underneath it, we have a couple of tension washers right here. Then we have the clicker. It goes on like that. The hollow side or the indented side is up. The flat side goes down. And then this is just a little collar that goes on there. All right. So let's start taking it apart. All right, to take off this side case here, first thing you need to do, you just get a flathead screwdriver and back that off a little bit. It will not come all the way out. So don't sit there and try to keep twisting it. It's going to come out just a little bit, and then you pull that towards you, and then on this, you just lift up on that side case, and it'll come right off. All right. So this is our side case. You'll notice right there, there's a bearing. Let's take that out real quick. There's a 1, 2, 3 hexagonal or a pentagonal little bearing wire right in there. Keep your hand over that, or keep your finger over that, excuse me. And then we'll just take like this little pick, stick that in there, and we'll get one side of it out, and then we should be good to go. You be careful with them. They are pretty springy, and they can take off and flip across the room real quick. All right, there it is. That's what that looks like. Okay, and then the bearing should just fall right out of there. If it doesn't, we'll get our little bearing tool here and just pull that out. Sometimes I kind of get the cockeyed in there. There, a little difficult to get out. There you go, right there it is. We'll set that down there, and then there's our side plate. All right, for these bearings, I will take these and I will soak these in acetone or like Coleman fuel or something like that, and that'll dissolve all the greases and stuff inside of them, and then we'll re-oil those. So that's what's going to happen to the bearings. Set that right there and that right there. Just pull the spool out. All right, you notice there's another bearing on the spool right here. Okay. So that one, we'll have to use our bearing removal tool. Okay. So we'll spin this out. Now there's generally a big side to this and a small side. Obviously you're going to push out from the small side out that way. We'll just set that over there. Not sure I can, kind of hard to show it to you. Try to do this here. Alright, should be able to hold that right there. And this is going to push that pin out. I should get that started. And we'll get it finished up with the other end. Hard time getting that lined up there. There we go. And that'll push that pin all the way out. There's the pin right there. Set that to the side. Now, that pin's not in there, that bearing will fall right off. Same thing, we'll clean that in the acetone or Coleman fuel and get all the junk out of there, and we'll get that re-lubed. Alright, now let's get on to the reel itself. Alright, missing a screw in there, and that's alright. Let's start with this screw down here. On some of these new reels, they've got kind of screws everywhere on them, versus just making it easy and putting them on the outside cover. They kind of put them everywhere. So this is an oil port right here, but we need to take that out. That will come off, and then that screw came out right there. So you can see if you just need to do some oiling or some greasing, right there's your gear, and you can do that without taking the whole reel apart. But we're going to take this one apart and clean it all the way. Okay, so that's the only screw on the inside. And then we're going to take, that one obviously is just attached to the other side plate, so we're not going to mess with that. That just stays there. We have that screw there and that screw there. That one goes in the bottom there. Alright, so now this side plate will pop right off here. A couple of things we've got to look at. This stays in, so don't worry about that. Next thing is we have another bearing right here. So it'll come out on the top, I believe. So we just unscrew this. All right, let me pick that up. That is just a little pressure plate that pushes down on that spool tension bearing. And then a little black plastic piece that goes down top of there. Got that. And then again, we got that little tension clip there, or the retainer clip. So we'll get that started. Generally, you can look in here and find where it has an opening, and that's where I like to start. So I keep this thumb on there so it doesn't fly across the room. And then you can sometimes use a flathead screwdriver. I think using this pick is a little bit easier. Then I can just grab that side of it. Okay, so we got that, and that bearing comes right out. Same thing on that bearing. Okay, we're just going to clean up the inside of here. Okay, this is your anti-reverse bearing here. What I will generally do is I'll just get a Q-tip. This is not something you want to grease. I'll just get a Q-tip and run it along the inside of here and make sure it stays dry. Yes, there's a little bit of oil and grease on there, but not a whole lot. So we'll just do that. So that should be all we need to do to that. All right, set that over there. Now let's look at the inside of the reel. Okay, we have your pressure plate for your drag right there. So that's going to come off first. Tell you what, let's first thing, take off these two pinion yoke springs, because they're kind of like everything else. They tend to disappear on you and shoot across the room if you're not careful. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to take off this entire gear here. We just pull that straight up and that'll come off. Okay. Now there's a lot of stuff on here. Okay. On the very top is a little washer, and then we have the pressure plate that puts pressure on the drag to actually create the drag. Okay, so we got that. There's another drag washers everywhere, huh? We have top one there. We have the pressure plate. We have your first drag washer. Then we have what's called an eared drag washer because it's got the little tabs on it. Got that right there. Then we have another drag washer right there. Then we have what we call a keyed washer. You'll see that is square hole instead of a round one, so it has to go a certain way. And then here's our final drag washer. All right. Those all go right in here. Okay. Underneath here, you will have another little drag washer, and this is your clicker plate. This basically, when you cast your reel and you turn your handle, this will re-engage your reel so you can reel it back in. Okay, so got that down first, and then you have this. Right. Next thing we're going to take off is our pinion gear yoke, which is the little plastic piece here. And then our pinion gear and the little pin that goes inside of it. All right, put that down right there. All right, next thing, last thing we're going to take off is we're going to take off the shaft, because there's probably a bearing underneath there that we need to take care of. All right. that one. Then we have these two little ones. Here. And then we'll lift this. We should be able to lift that right off. Okay, so there we have another bearing. All right. That's going to get the exact same treatment. It's going to, there's a little E-clip there we'll have to remove and then take the bearing off. It's going to get soaked. It's going to get re-oiled and put back on there. All right. Some reels you have to take this screw out to get that off. This one you do not. So I'm just going to put that back in there. That's one less thing on our bench that we have to worry about. All right. So look in here underneath that bearing. There is a shim. So we're going to take that off and we'll know that that goes right under there. All right, folks, so that's it. I am going to service the line guide while I have this taken apart. But just realize that there's a video on my channel. I think it's entitled Servicing Your Line Guide System. That'll just show how you take this all apart and clean it up and put it back together. So go ahead and watch that, and that'll give you all the information you need to know for that. All right, it's a pretty simple process. They're all real similar, but you can see this one turns really, really nicely. But I'll take that out and I'll get it all cleaned up and put back in, and then we'll go from there. All right, we'll see y'all here in a bit after I get everything cleaned up. All right, welcome back. Got everything cleaned up. I think the first thing we're gonna do, I have already put that shaft back in after servicing that bearing, so that's good to go. And I have put this bearing in this side plate and replaced that shield, so that's ready to go. But those are all pretty basic, so I did want to show you how to do this though with the bearing tool. That is the side of the spool where that bearing goes. Again, bearing has been cleaned and oiled. You just set that back down on there. Now you have to kind of look, there's a bigger side of the hole and a smaller side. I think that's the bigger one right there. So we're going to obviously put the smaller side of the pin into the bigger side of that hole. We're going to get this tool and we're going to push it back in there. Alright, so we're going to push from the fat side to the thin side. There that is. And we want about the same amount of that pin sticking out on each side of that hole. So we'll just kind of guess it's going in there. Okay, so I think we're going to be careful with it. Okay. Alright, let's see how that is. That's about right. We got about the same amount on each side there. So we're going to call that good to go. Alright, so that spool is serviced and ready to be put back in. All right. Next thing, let's put this bearing in the side plate here. Again, we've serviced the bearing. We've oiled it. We're just going to press that down in there evenly. I do have my bearing tool. If I wanted to use that, I could just use that to press that down in there. Next thing that goes in is this little clip. Again, I'm just going to set that in there like that and hold it. And try to push this side in. Sometimes it's easier can actually put the middle, hold the middle part down, and then you can do each side. If you can see that, it's kind of hard to see. I'll just take this and kind of move that down in there, I think. All right, just a second. Put that edge in. Kind of push this all we can. All right, so almost got it in there. Don't let it go yet. And we use this pick just to get it all the way in there. All right, there it is. It's all the way in there, so we're safe. Next thing that goes down is this little, we're gonna put these actually in the cup. Okay, first thing was this little, it's almost like a carbon piece there. And then here's this little tensioner piece that kind of keeps tension on the bearing. Okay. And we're just gonna put that in from the outside. All right, so we're done with that. All right, now let's get down to business. First thing we're gonna do, let's put on our pinion gear and our pinion yoke. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is put a little bit of grease in here. You don't need to put tons of grease on here. Okay. If you do, you just end up with a whole lot of extra grease in your reel, which obviously that's never good. It's gonna attract dirt and everything else. Also realize that this and the main gear over here mesh, and when they do, they're gonna share that grease. Okay, so a little part there goes up. I think you can notice right here, there's kind of like a little, almost like what's called a ramp. Same thing on this side, it's just kind of angled, and I think you can maybe see that the angled side always goes down, okay? So when you're putting that on these posts, the angled side goes down, okay? So we have that greased. We're just gonna take it, set it over these two posts, and that'll drop right down in there. All right. Now, tell you what we're gonna do. Let's take that off real quick. So this reel, the handle, or I'm sorry, the button was really stiff, okay? So what I did is I got some just gun cleaner spray. Gun cleaner obviously is used on guns, which have plastic and metal parts as well, so it's safe to use on this reel. I sprayed gun cleaner right down in there, right down in there. Then I moved the handle and got to spray it all down in there and all around in this part just to get all the gunk out. Okay, now if you do this, if you push this handle down when you're cleaning your reel, even on accident, you're not going to be able to get all your gears and everything on there the right way. So just hold that handle or hold that button up, and you can just manually move that back and you're good to go. Okay, so handle's good. We're going to put some oil in here. So let's do that real quick. We'll drop on this side. We'll drop on this side. And you'll see it's up and down. So we're just going to work that in there, okay? Sometimes they just get gunky and stuff gets in there, and they get hard to push down. If you, I don't know if you noticed on the Ambassador I did yesterday, that handle was horrible, but it was just because all the stuff in here was just gunky. Okay, so that's all been cleaned out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little bit of oil kind of around in just different places here. Any of the places where your parts meet, it's a good place to put it. And you don't have to put tons and tons in there, but you do need a little bit of lubrication. Okay, so we're gonna push that down again, and then we'll push that. And we'll just work it in there a couple of times. And all right, we're good to go. Okay, these here, that is your main shaft. That is your gear for your line guide system. You can put a little bit of grease on them. You know, they say, well, you know, they're plastic, they don't necessarily need it. Yeah, I know, but just put a, like I said, just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot. As you can see, those two are different sizes, so they're going to share grease, okay? So I'll just put a little bit in there, spin it a little bit. You can see that's already on the other gear, so we're good to go there. All right, now let us start building the reel. Okay, like we said, we have our pinion yoke with the angled sides down. We already have grease on this, so we're going to take this and we're going to set it right on those two posts, okay? And that's going to set right down in there. All right, so our pinion gear and our pinion yoke are good to go. Next thing we're going to do, this is our clicker plate. It's going to go, you see it's keyed, it's kind of square, so it's got to go on the same way on the shaft. Now be sure that you take your time and you get that down on there all the way. Okay, if you don't, you may have problems engaging your gear, and then you're going to kind of wonder what you might have done. Okay, this is a small drag washer. We're going to take just a little bit of cow's drag grease, smear it all around in there. Not a whole lot. Set that down on there. All right. Next thing is our main gear. Let's put some grease on that. Same thing. I just want to try to put just a little bit of grease. You got to think these are little bitty teeth, and when that pinion gear meshes with them, I'm just going to spread that grease out. So you can see I don't have a whole lot on there, just enough to kind of fill most of those slots, and that's going to be all we need. All right, so we have the main gear. So let's put it down. It's going to mesh right here with this pinion gear. Okay? Pinion gear fell over, not a problem. Straighten that back up. There, see? The two mesh, they're going to share grease. So we're good there. All right, first one that goes down is this first drag washer. Okay. A little bit of cow's drag grease on there. So we have one. Now we have like I said, the keyed washer, which is the one with the square hole in it that has to go a certain way on the shaft. Okay. So we got that one. Now we're going to do our second drag washer. It's probably a little much there, but that's all right. We just wipe our excess off here. Put that one on. Okay, this middle metal washer is what we call our eared washer, because you can see the two little ears on it. Okay. Those are going to fit down into that little slot and that little slot there. Okay. All right, so those are set there. And we have our next little drag washer here. I guess it's a little drag washer, it's the same as all the rest of them. All right, a little bit of drag grease on that. We're going to put that down right there. And then we've got our top pressure plate. This has got one side a little bit bowed up. That's the side you want facing up, so we'll set that right there. And we have this little silver washer that goes down. And the next thing, all right. Next thing is going to be this little shaft here. That is keyed also. So we're just going to put that facing down. All right, so we're good right there. Next couple of things we need to do. This pin here goes inside the pinion gear. So I will actually just put a little bit of oil on there. So it has a little bit of lubrication when it spins. It's going to go right there. All right, so we're good there. And then let me think, let me look. I think we're just about done on this side of the reel. Check all my stuff here. Don't see all this is for up there. Got all that done, got that done. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Don't forget your pinion yoke springs here. So, just hold that straight up. Put one of your pinion yoke springs there. Put the other one right there on that post. All right. Now we've got that pin to line up and everything else. So let's look at the way this goes. That looks like it goes right there. So that pin is going to go in that big hole right there. And then we'll just lay that down there on the main shaft, and that should help us kind of line everything up. Okay, what I found is if you'll just kind of push this down, spin this a little bit. All right, see how that came together so nicely? Now, what is really makes it pretty easy, I'll tell you what, let's just put this goes here. So that goes there. That goes there. This little one goes down here. And this next one, that's going to see, you can see the grease on the gear right there. That's going to go in, where you put your little tab goes facing the inside of the reel. So that goes right there. Kind of hold that down with your finger. And we'll get this last little one put in here. That held in there. All right, wipe my fingers off here. Next thing we're going to do is put in the spool. All right, the spool is just going to see if I can get the right way here. The spool is just going to go right in here. All right, so that's good to go. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this side plate on. This is the top of the reel. Okay, so you want to actually get it set on there, and it kind of pushes that pin in, and you're just going to rotate that down. You heard it click, and then you're just going to screw that screw in just a little bit. That's going to help secure that other side plate as well. All right, doesn't have to be real tight. So all right, we're good to go there. All right, reel is spinning really nicely. Okay. Next thing that goes on tell you what, let me take a look at this schematic here. I think that clicker plate, yeah, that clicker plate needs to go on after those because it's got to sit inside here. Okay, so we have that metal collar on there. These are tension washers. They're kind of bowed a little bit. The bows need to oppose each other. So like this one, the belly of it's going to go down. It just fits right there. Then when we look at this one, the belly of it's going to go up. And those will sit right there. Then the next thing will be our clicker. If I can get it on here. Come on, Greg. Clicker. And then our start drag. Oh. Just make sure you get that on there square. Generally, if it's going on that easy, you're good to go. If you get it down and you need to adjust it further, but you can't really get a hold of it, you can put that handle on there and then just temporarily hold the handle, and then you can you can hear it. It just started clicking when I kind of got that down there on top of that clicker plate. All right, so we got that down there. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to put that down a little bit more, is we're going to put this this handle tensioner right there. I think it looks like it needs to go the other way. And then we're going to put the handle itself on. Then the nut. So you know this nut has the nut retention piece over there. To get that on, you need to have one of these points on this nut facing that. Okay. You don't have to have this cranked on here. I mean, like super, super, super tight. See if that works. That's perfectly snug. Now let's see. All right, so that fits right there. It lines up perfectly. So when I get this screw over here, it should fit in there real nicely, which it did. And now we're just going to tighten that down. All right, so the reel spins nicely, really good. Free spool, really, 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 look at that. And clicks over just how it is. The handle's nice and crisp. You just have to clean that out. It's really nice to go. Got your line guide there, cleaned really nicely. So that's it. That is your cleaning and servicing of the Abu Garcia Revo SX. Okay, I do reel repair for others, so if that's something you're interested in, contact me at gregsreelrevival@gmail.com, and I will shoot you a price, generally 20-25 bucks. So not a whole lot of money, especially if you're going to spend $200 or $300 on a reel. Have it serviced. You know, some people say every year, some people say every couple of years. Kind of depends on your usage. Obviously, if you're using it almost every weekend, yeah, have it serviced pretty much every year. But if you're only using it once in a while, send it in every 2 or 3 years and get it serviced. I've got some old Shimano Curados that are, 30 years old, 35 years old, and they're flawless. They've been cleaned, they've been kept up. So consider doing that. And I will get to your reels pretty promptly. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you would, like and subscribe to my channel. Thank y'all. We're over 100 subscribers now. Up to 110, which doesn't sound like a lot, but first 100 were pretty hard to get. Going to try to make some more videos a little more frequently. But thank y'all for watching. And if you want your reel serviced, holler at me and like and subscribe. And we will see you next time. Thank you.